But of that day or hour no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. In the gospel, Jesus is trying to prepare us for the future, to make us think ahead of what is to come. And the biggest event in our future that will affect all of us is Jesus' return in glory, his second coming. We're reminded of this every year at this time as we near the end of the liturgical year. And also, it's one of the themes of Advent, Jesus' coming. Advent, which we begin in only 2 short weeks from now. As Jesus says, that we won't know the exact moment when he's going to return. It could be in the next 5 minutes, or it could be hundreds of years from now. We don't know. Therefore, we must live assuming that we and our families and our parishes will be here for years to come. And as we've already seen in these past couple of years, that's why we have to undergo a planning process for the future, facing current and future realities with the knowledge that certain changes are going to be necessary has not always been very pleasant. Nearly a year ago was when the final plan was put forth, connecting our 2 parishes also to St. John's in Petersburg. And it also has us working with the 2 parishes to our north in Neely and Tilden as well. There was a kind of delay for several months after that in the planning process, which I know that for some of us, we may have felt that, well, maybe nothing's going to come of this at all. But even during this time, work has continued in the background, especially looking at an emphasis on evangelization, of how that can bring greater life to our parish communities. And since that final plan, almost a year ago now, this parish grouping has expanded from 5 parishes to 8, including St. Teresa's in Clearwater, Rural St. John's, and St. Peter's in Ewing. They're also interested in being connected to us and working together for our future. Much of this was explained after a meeting of parish representatives that have been meeting now the last couple of months. We had a report in September. We're trying to not implement something that is just good for a couple years, that we're just going to have to redo over again. It's not really healthy for parishes to have to continually to undergo planning like that. Instead, what we're trying together is to create something sustainable into the future. At least 20, 30 years following the projection for the number of priests that we're going to have. So the most immediate change is going to occur this coming July 1st. That's when I will begin serving as pastor also of St. John's in Petersburg. It's essential that this transition happen this coming summer because there are already several priests going to retire this year. And we don't have as many ordinations to replace them. And so we have to make this transition in order to ensure parishes are served. So it's good for us to prepare now and through the coming months to make this transition well. There, of course, is going to be a number of factors, a number of things that that are going to be determined behind the scenes. Some of these you may not see or feel directly, but they're happening. But probably one thing that many of you are probably thinking about in this is, well, what does this mean for our Mass times? As I am but one man, I can't be in more than one spot at the same time. We're going to have to look at our Mass schedules and make changes, work things out, what makes sense for the future. So perhaps you've already heard certain rumors about what a potential schedule could look like. Maybe you've come up with your own ideas. I know some of you have talked to me about those kinds of things, and that's great. But I have to let you know that there isn't a schedule that's been decided yet. As pastor, I have that responsibility of making that decision, and I want to do so based upon what makes sense, gathering all the different kinds of data. And there's one piece of data that today I want your help being able to receive. So what we're going to be passing out now is a survey. This is a tool for helping gain some information about our Mass attendance habits. This survey was created by myself for this purpose, and it's adopted in all the parishes across this 8-parish grouping. So even if you're not from one of our 2 parishes, if you're visiting from one of the other ones, whether from Petersburg on up to Neely, Tilden, Ewing, Clearwater, Rural St. John's, go ahead and fill out the survey. Also, if you are old enough to drive yourself to Mass, you also should fill out a survey as well. To be clear about it, it's not a vote. I won't be able to, whatever the results come in, I can't use that alone to determine what the Mass schedule is going to be. There's many other things, but this is an important part of the information that I'd like to have. So as they're passing that out, we'll kind of walk through, and I'll kind of explain why asking some of these questions. There's pencils at the end of the pews if you need something to write with. So if we look at the first question is pretty straightforward. What parish are you registered at? So we have all 8 of the parishes. If you're visiting from elsewhere, there's no need for you to fill out the survey. Second one is pretty straightforward as well. How often do you attend Mass? The third question asks about the general time that you would attend Mass. And so these are what's listed are all the different possibilities throughout all of our 8 parishes. For now, we're in our planning process, we are maintaining 3 priests for the 8 parishes. But we're giving out this survey across all 8 of them, even though some of them may not need to necessarily alter Mass times at this point. But knowing that in the future, we will likely have to go down to 2 priests serving this area. And so this will help us to get certain information that we may need for future decisions as well. Number 4 then asks about, well, what Mass time would you prefer to attend regularly? And that might be exactly the same as number 3. Maybe you are attending right now the time that you like. Or maybe you'd like to attend a different time, but no parish in the area really has that time that you'd like. So you can indicate it there with number 4. Number 5 asks, well, what factor is more important in determining which Mass you'll attend? Whether it's in your parish or whether you more often choose a Mass because of the time. The next questions following that kind of clarifies that question in a greater way as well. Number 6 asks, excluding when you travel outside our parish cluster region, how often do you currently attend Mass at a local parish other than your own? So excluding when you might be traveling to Norfolk or Omaha or Grand Island or wherever you may be going, whenever you're in our region, how often might you go to one of the other parishes, like going to Rayville or going to Neely, or whatever parish other than your home parish? Number 7 then asks, so if you rarely do that, if you rarely attend Mass outside your home parish, what might be the reasons why you choose to do that? So for some, it could be various different things, including maybe you're busy doing liturgical ministries at your own parish, or maybe it's a good distance, maybe because of health or age. Number 8 then asks, well, maybe if you do attend Mass often at a parish other than your own, what might give you reason for doing that as well? So maybe it might be because you like that time better than what you have at your home parish. The last 2 questions, number 9 and number 10, are asking about how far you have to travel to go to Mass. So, first one, number 9, is how far do you need to travel now to go to your home parish? Or number 10, if you go to Mass at the next closest parish, how far would you travel then? At the end of the survey, it notes that, once again, this is a survey. It's not a vote. There's going to be other factors. When the final decision is made, it's going to be based upon this, as well as what makes sense, balancing all these different things, like what is our Mass attendance numbers that we have in our area? How big, how much capacity do our different churches have? Whether a church has air conditioning or not. Of course, what are our priests capable of doing? Taking into account all the other factors and all the other things that they have to do, and so that we still remain sane. So as people are finishing up, then we'll go ahead and they'll be collected. This survey not only gathers some data for me to make the decisions, but hopefully it also gives you an opportunity to participate in this process of planning. Don't want you to feel like you don't have any say or thoughts. Many of you have already talked to me about it, and we've had different discussions, and that's been wonderful, being able to engage with you in these different questions for the future. Also, hopefully it begins us thinking again. If we've kind of taken a break from thinking about the planning that's going on, this gets us thinking about it again, and especially about what is Jesus calling us to do as parishes? How is he calling us to be together, to be one church, to be his disciples, and calling others to be his disciples for the future? If you know somebody who's traveling this weekend, your family or friends, and you know that they'd like to also participate, anyone can come to parish office and receive a survey to fill out during this week. When the disciples heard Jesus' description of the end of time and his return, I'm sure that it brought a little confusion and fear. His description is very stark. He says, in those days after that tribulation, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. Almost sounds kind of depressing. Is coming. And thinking about changes in our parishes might also bring certain fear and uncertainty. But Jesus assures us in this passage that even if heaven and earth pass away, God's word does not pass away. While all earthly things change and eventually end, God never changes. God never ends. We only need to remain close to him. So just as Jesus is assuring us not to have that great fear of his coming, especially if we love him, we just meet the one that we love when he arrives. I also want to assure you as well that myself, as well as my brother priests, Father John, Father Pat, the three of us in this area, that we truly want your good. In today's world, sometimes we can jump to the conclusion that the other person wishes our ill if they can't give us exactly what we would like. But please don't take the fact that a fewer number of priests are unable to do what maybe 2 or even 3 times as many of priests could do in the past. Don't take that as us wishing your harm. The heart of a priest, the heart of a pastor, he wants the good for his flock. The good not just for the parishes that each of us individually are assigned to as pastors, have come to know and to love, but for all these parishes, for all of God's children who are living within these 8 parishes in this specific part of God's kingdom.